I was covered in blood all over. It looked much worse than it was.
Right now at 11, an Ironman athlete got hit by a truck, then went on to still finish the 140.6-mile triathlon. Thanks so much for staying up with us. I'm Channing Curtis. Now, our Zach Wilcox actually spoke with the Orlando racer and has his message for organizers as well as city leaders.
Well, a day after the Ironman, it's hard to tell this is where athletes were crossing the finish line as crews are working on breaking everything down behind me here. And it's always an ordeal, of course, to finish 140.6 miles, but it was even more of an ordeal for Zach Stinson than most because he says he got hit by a truck about halfway through. He had to finish the Ironman covered in blood dripping down from his forehead, and he's hoping his experience is something that city leaders and organizers will take into account when planning for the next Ironman.
You have to always plan to know that things aren't going to go your way and have to reset, recalibrate.
Zach Stinson knew he'd hit some obstacles on his 140.6-mile Ironman trek through Jacksonville and Ponte Vedra Beach, but he certainly wasn't planning on getting hit by a truck.
Honestly, most of what happened was just the shock of it.
Stinson says a truck pulled out in front of him about 50 miles into the bicycle portion, leaving him with a gash on his head and a call to make. Could he get back on his bike to go another 62 miles, then run a marathon?
Totally dazed, but physically I could compete, so I made the decision to do it.
Stinson managed to finish the Ironman in about 11 hours, and he says his collision wasn't the only rough moment he's hoping will factor into planning for the next Ironman.
I saw another cyclist get hit while I was cycling, so I know there's at least me and another. I think if you are just investigating where patterns were, and then you can identify sources of issues that you can correct.
Jacksonville City Council member Raul Arias was on the course with Stinson and had his own scary encounter.
On mile number 3, a car almost hit me where I had to veer off.
Arias says he heard route suggestions from several athletes on the course he wants to bring to the table, but he doesn't want to lose sight of the positive impact the race had on the city. He says his family members stopped by an ice cream shop in Riverside while waiting for him to finish.
And she said, hey, this has been one of the best days of her business life. It shows you that this is a good thing for our city. It's just we need to make sure that we hammer it down, and I think the bike component, that's the one piece that we need to figure out.
Stinson's crash occurred in the St. Johns County portion of the Ironman, and we found out from St. Johns County Fire Rescue they had 13 calls for service, 5 people taken to the hospital, and of course 1 vehicle versus cyclist crash. And I'm sure all those numbers will come up Tuesday morning when county leaders will gather to talk about the traffic and safety impacts of having the race. And as for Jacksonville, Arias mentioned the Ironman team will be back in town in the next couple of weeks where they'll meet with city leaders and they can talk about route alternatives. In downtown, Zach Wilcox, First Coast News, on your side.